Shalom. Our Torah portion for this week is Ki Teitzei, and we're going to be reading a passage found in chapter 22 of the book of Deuteronomy. In this week's Torah portion, there is a passage that deals with what we call in Hebrew a ben sorer umoreh, a defiant and rebellious son. What we're about to read is startling. It's even disturbing to modern ears. And yet it's there in the Torah, and if we're serious about Torah study, we need to look at it and see if we can derive some bit of wisdom from it that we can apply to our lives in our own times. Let's take a look at it in the Hebrew and the English. Ki hiye leish ben sorer umoreh איננו שומע בקול אביו ובקול אמו, ויסראו אותו ולא ישמע עליהם. ותפסו בו אביו ואמו, והוציאו אותו אל זקני עירו, ואל שער מקומו. ואמרו אל זקני עירו, בנינו זה סורר ומורה. איננו שומע בקולנו, זולל וסובב. ורגמוהו כל אנשי עירו, ואבנים ומת. וביערת הרע מקרבך, וכל ישראל ישמעו ויראו. If a householder has a wayward and defiant son, who does not heed his father or mother, and does not obey them even after they discipline him, his father and mother shall take hold of him, and bring him out to the elders of his town at the public place of his community. They shall say to the elders of his town, "This son of ours is disloyal and defiant. He does not heed us. He is a glutton and a drunkard." Thereupon his town's council shall stone him to death. Thus you will sweep out evil from your midst. All Israel will hear and be afraid. I told you it would be a little bit harsh and maybe disturbing to contemporary minds. Now, it must have been so to the rabbis of old as well, because they say that it never happened, that there was never a case in which a child was stoned to death for disobeying his parents. Not only did it never happen, it could never happen. And the rabbis, in their Talmudic fashion, understand that this couldn't happen because of legal reasons. First of all, they say, it's his son, and the legal term for son only applies to a young person up to the age of 13. After the age of 13, we wait until the young person shows some whiskers, has to show some signs of a beard, and at that time we begin to call him a man. Well, most 13-year-olds or 13-year-olds within a couple of months of their 13th birthdays have at least some peach fuzz. So the possibility of the timing for this to happen is very limited. Second of all, it says sons. It excludes daughters. The rabbis go on to say that it's important that the mother also brings the son to this court situation. Usually women did not appear in court. Now, this is interesting that in this case the mother appears. Why is that? Well, how can a mother who gave birth to a child actually carry through this very harsh sentence? And so the rabbis are obviously hoping that the mother will speak up and say, no, don't let it happen. In addition to this, the rabbis pile on law after law, requirement after requirement, that make it impossible to carry out this particular injunction of the Torah. And yet, the rabbis of old, and perhaps we as well, say that there's wisdom to be derived from this passage, even though we don't obey it literally. What can we contemporary Jews make of this Torah portion? What wisdom can it give us? Well, it seems to me that we live in what some people have called a sibling society, where parents are more like their children's brothers and sisters rather than mothers and fathers. There's maybe a little bit too much parents acting as the friends of their children and not as the mothers and fathers. People have often said that being a parent is not a popularity contest. We live in a time where parental authority is defied all of the time. We live in a culture in which the music and the arts, you know, and what we see on television and what we hear in music and in the movies, encourage children to be defiant of their parents. And that simply doesn't work. I think it leads to a lot of unnecessary suffering of young people. Now, the Torah specifically talks about gluttony and drunkenness. These are matters of self-control, of restraint, of delayed gratification. These are important values that parents must teach their children if their children are to succeed in life as they grow into adulthood. And so somehow, and I don't know exactly how, somehow we as a culture have to, I think, find a way of re-instilling in our children, maybe through the culture at large, a sense of reverence for parents. An expectation on the part of young people that their parents are right and their parents have their best interests at heart. So I hope that you will read this week's Torah portion and come to your own conclusions. Shabbat Shalom.
أبا شمعون كن بعوني لا دعيتك عينني أبا شمعون كن بعوني